Welcome to the Modern Application Development 2 screencast. In this screencast, we'll see how to set up our computer with tools that are required for building Vue application with single file components. This is an advanced feature for which you might have to install more tools on your computer. So be ready with the computer where you can install stuff and run things, or you can try it on Replit. I would like to actually do it locally so you know what it involves. Once you install, you should be able to run the demos with me. I'll also show you the steps how to do it. So for this, you will need a terminal, a browser, and an editor. Let's see this. What is this advanced feature single file component means? For example, we had an application which was a fairly simple application, but the JavaScript file was growing. One of the ideas to simplify or to manage this application would be to split each of the component into a different .js file, and then keep it simple, and then have templates separately and stuff like that. But even then, you can't add style as part of this, and you have to declare styles separately, and there's a good chance that style gets mixed up between various components. And the component also will have a JavaScript mixed, or you have to write other JavaScript somewhere else and import them. There's a good chance that if you don't have a good setup, it might become very complex very soon. Especially if the application or the front end is fairly complex. If the front end is fairly simple, it has few components, maybe like single digit components, and not much logic, or not much things are happening. If you can keep it within HTML and JS and style.css, nothing like that, because you avoid a lot of extra work. But it's not always possible to do it, especially when you go from medium to big sized applications. When you want to do so much in the same page, it becomes fairly complex very soon. So in that case, single file components help you a lot. So let's see this. What is this single file component? Let's go to the Vue site. This is an example single file component. It will have an extension called .vue, signifying it's a Vue file. This file will have all three. It will have a template, it will have a script, and it will have a style. Like I have written a similar Vue component here. You can see that it's a simple component. It has only one component called app, and I'm just defining the style here for the app, and defining the script, and defining the template. You can add make it scoped, style as scoped. If you make it scoped like the way they've done here, then this style will apply only to this component, or this template defined here. Now this is a single component thing, and I could use something called a Vue CLI to run it. And advantages like I'm not setting up HTML, I'm not setting a div inside that HTML, I'm not importing the .js file, I'm not importing the .style CSS, and I'm not doing any of this. I'm just writing this one app.vue and launching it. So it's a great way to prototype, first of all. So we'll see if we write once this, how we are going to run this. To run this, we'll have to somehow convert this app.vue into the way browser runs it, which is into an HTML file, into a JavaScript file, into a style file. Somehow some program should pick this up and split these two into three separate things and combine them and give you a HTML application. And that's usually done by this tool called Vue CLI. Right? Let's go back to the thing, and here this is the Vue CLI is a command line tool provided by Vue project to build fairly complex applications or to do rapid development fairly easily. For this works as part of your Node.js environment. So you will have to learn a little bit of Node.js and how you use like importing and like some of the basics of the Node.js, and also how the build system works in the Node.js. So I'm going to introduce a little bit of that also, but we are not going to go deep into it because this is not like a Node.js thing. But if you know JavaScript, it's fairly easy to migrate into Node.js because Node.js is a way to run JavaScript on on the machine, not in the browser, like outside the browser, right? But still uses the Chrome sandbox. Now let's get back to how do we run this, right? So I'll show the demo first, and then I'll go back and show you how to install it and stuff. Let's go to the command line. I've already opened it here. So I'm going to do which view, because once you install the tool, it will be available as view. So you can see view help. So it's showing all the things that you can do. One of the thing is view serve, and you can pass it a .view file, right? So I can do view. Let me just do ls here. Go to code simple lsfc. If I do ls, I have 3 files here. Actually, the third file may not be required. Yeah, I just need a logo file, and because I'm using /logo here and for app.view, I don't need this another GIF, but it's okay. An extra file shouldn't hurt. Okay, now like you can just do view serve app.vue, right? So it will do certain things. It's downloading certain modules that it is required to build, and it has done whatever it is need to do, and starting the server at port 8080. Now if we go to port 8080 on our browser, you can see that that app is there, and you can you can edit things like welcome to view. Okay, and most of the times it should auto reload. So I didn't reload this, it auto reloaded, auto refreshed for you to help in development. So that is how you would develop locally. Now at some point you want to deploy this, right? But you're on the browser doesn't recognize app.vue, right? Because it kind of recognizes JavaScript files, and it recognizes PNG and stuff like that. To actually deploy or to make it production, we'll have to build it. Build is a way to convert app.vue into HTML, JavaScript and CSS static versions of it, so it can be deployed. So let me just do that. So it is view build, okay, and then app.vue. So it is, as you can see, it is saying building for production. So it will convert, it will use some process and convert this Vue app that we had into JS, CSS and an HTML. You can check here in the dist folder. You can see that it has created a folder. It has created a dist means for distribution, which is the production version. It has created an index.html. It has created JS. It has created image. It has created CSS. Right? If you go to index, it looks like somewhat your standard HTML, and you can see like what we used to do manually, adding app.div and stuff like that is been added by added by the Vue builder here. You can see here, right? And it has combined various JavaScript files, like for Vue production ready JavaScript files, our application JavaScript files, etc., 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 into couple of chunks, so it can be deployed very easily with minimal JavaScript required. Whatever the portions it's not required, it won't use it. So this way you can build it and deploy it. Now you can serve this dist folder using any web server. A simple Nginx server also will work. If you have a, for example, Flask installed, you can push it to like your static folder and use it from the static folder. Or for example, if you want to put it on an S3 bucket or any of the static distribution, you can do it. Or you can even use a simple Python M HTTP server. Like for example, if I go to cd.dist, here I can just say Python 3 http dot server Python 3 minus m HTTP server. Okay, so it's now like a static server running at 8000, and you can see localhost 8000, and you get the same app, but now it's served statically. Now you can actually go to the folder where it is built, and we can actually check the folder structure too, right? Let me just open. Here is the local folder in the dist. You can now copy this dist to anywhere you want. You can upload it to your HTTP server or anywhere and use it. It may not really work well with the browser, but since we don't have many things, you can directly open the browser and see it too. But usually may not work really well because the URL routing is fixed to run on a server. Anyway, okay, so that's the thing of magic of this Vue tool, right? Which we have been using, which is Vue. This is the tool or the CLI tool that Vue.js project provides, like I said here. To install this, we need to have Node.js running on our computer, and then we also need NPM package manager. So you can start with the Node.js download. You can install it for your machine. For example, if you are running Linux, you can just install it by using the binaries, or you can go to your if you're using Ubuntu, you can use the package manager to install. Same with the Microsoft, you can download an MSI and start using it. Once you install the Node.js, I'm not going to install it here. You should be able to do which node, right? And it should give you which version of the node that you're running. I'm running 12.23, but I would suggest you to use the latest long-term version, whatever that is, LTS. So now you should be able to start node. Node here works similar to how our Python command works. So if you just type node, it will be like similar to how the Python works, which will be starting the let me just open another terminal. Okay, like for example, if you start Python 3, it starts a REPL, right? Then you can do print. Right, so it gives you that. Similarly, node also, when you just start with a node, it starts a REPL, right? You can do you can give in here we give a Python code to run. Here similarly you can give a JavaScript code to run. For example, I can do console.log same hello world, right? And it should do that thing, and it's also printing the return, which console.log doesn't return, so it's fine. It's returning HW, but HW is the printing to the log. You can do many other things, like similar to any other REPL, right? Here the only difference is Node.js is a way to run JavaScript in the on the outside the browser, so it won't have an access to a window object. For example, when you are in a browser, and if you inspect and if you go to console, you have access to an object called window, right? and you have certain things attached to window, like it's a proper object. But here there is no access to the window, right? There is no object called window, because there is no window here, there's no DOM here, right? It's just a standard programming language at this point, but it still runs inside the sandbox of Chrome or V8 rather, so that it's kind of some of the features like asynchronous programming, all of that comes built in. Okay, at this point we'll stop about Node, and we'll see one example of a Node script, which is a JavaScript file that you can run. Okay, I'll just shut this down, clear this. See, I'll go to the code, Node.js, right? So here I've written two scripts. First one is, let me just do what's there in the hello world. So you can see that it has just one. Okay, I think the screen isn't clear. So I'll just do cat hello world. Okay, it's not clear. Okay, let me just show it in the thing. Here, hello world is just just one print statement called console.log, right? So I should be able to do node, and just like Python, I should be able to give a script for it to run. So I can just give hello world.js, and it runs this and prints this, right? Now console.log is printing to a console, and the node has written or overwritten this to print it to our standard output instead of the browser console, and that's why you can use it. But similarly, you can't use a standard input. For example, in a browser you could use prompt to get the input, but you can't use the prompt in Node.js because it can't prompt, because there's no UI. Similarly, you can't do an alert. But to read input, you have to use something called readline. In any other programming, how you would create an input stream, read it from the input stream and do the things, you can do the same thing here. So here I've just written a Fibonacci series. You don't need this because you don't need to declare the current, next and temp, and given whatever the number, I will actually print the Fibonacci series. So like here is the prompt, and once the user answers the question, the answer of that prompt will be in this, and we are using that to run the thing. For example, now I can do node, right? It's asking how many numbers do you need. You can say 10, and then it prints the Fibonacci series of 10 numbers. 10 numbers in that Fibonacci series. This actually looks very similar to any other programming, right? This part, except that this is very JavaScript, right? Except this part, if I remove this part, for example, and instead of this, if I make it like an prompt, right, and take it to let series count is equal to, you have to pass into int because it takes the it gives us a string, and then we need an integer. So this is just what we would run it in a browser. Correct? This will run in a browser, but when you're actually running in a Node.js, which is outside the browser, you can't do it because you don't have a prompt, and you will use a readline, right? Or if somebody has overwritten a prompt, you have to use that prompt. You can't use the default prompt. So this is there are quite a few subtle differences between how you run things in browser using JavaScript, and how do you run it on a server side or on a console or on a machine outside the browser using Node.js. If you want to dig further or learn further, you should go to the Node.js site and explore more how to write code in using Node.js. It could be useful for you to do like a really high-end front-end application if you want to pursue that path. Now we are not going to go into deep levels of Node.js. I just wanted to give an example. Of course, like JavaScript, you can write classes here, objects here, all of that. What JavaScript supports are supported here too. So if you know a little bit of JavaScript in a regular browser world, you can apply most of it here, right? Okay, now let's get back to our path of, now we have installed Node. Now the next step is to install the NPM. Now NPM is a package manager, just like how PyPy is in in Python world. So we use same npm command to install a package on Node.js, similar to how we use pip3 or pip to install a package in Python world, right? So we have to install pip3. Similarly, we have to install npm itself on your machine. So you can go to npm site and download and install part. You can go down. There is a place where it says how to install. Okay, it's in a separate tab. So for different operating systems, either you can use package manager in Ubuntu to download and install. In Windows, Windows is also supported very well, so you can use Node.js page and install it. Once you install, you should be able to do which npm, right? So if this shows npm is installed, you can also do npm help to see npm is installed, right? Now npm supports various subcommands that you can use to install a package. Now is the time when we are going to install the Vue CLI. So Vue CLI is a package that you can use, that you can install using an npm, right? So here are the steps. Let's say installation. Here are the steps to install that. So the command would be npm install -g at vue/cli. This is, not same, but it's similar to what you would expect in the Python world, right? Python pip3 install, give the package a name. Similarly, in npm you will give npm install -g vue.cli. If you do -g, it installs at the system level, so the command is available across. So I can go ahead and call this, but like you said, I've already installed. I'm not going to do this because it's going to download a lot of sub packages or dependencies and things like that, and would take some amount of time to install. So I would suggest you to install it offline, but I'm going to stop, not going to install it currently, right? I've already installed it. Once you installed, you should be able to do Vue, right? Vue help or Vue version to show Vue version, right? This is not the actual Vue version. This is the command line, this specific program version, and it also supports many sub programs. Like we said, it supports serve, it supports build, etc. for single pane, which is what we used. It supports other things which we'll look at later, right? And then we also want to install another package called Vue, this package, which is called Vue CLI Services Global. It also installs other things that are required for us to build the project, not serve, but build the project. You can search. I don't know whether they have given it here. Okay, here, this one, right? This is the one which we required in order to build the project later when we actually want to set up a whole project, right? Currently we may not do it, but I want you to install it, and so that in the next screencast when we're going to use, you don't have to do that installation again. Okay, so once it is done, like we said, now we can go to our Vue app, go to code, simple sfc, oh sorry, and do what we did before, which is view serve app dot view, right? So this will actually serve the project on our local host, right? Okay, is it 8080? Yeah. Correct. We've already seen the build part of it, right? Like we've already seen how to build and get the distributed folder, like, you know, which gives you actual view if in case we had written highly efficient JS code and, you know, style sheet, etc. by hand, right? You can also see it's the same thing that we had defined in the component has come here, right? Now, other bigger advantage of Vue CLI is to be able to create projects, right? So that will be using this option, you create. So it will create the whole project. It will set up the build process, so you could use subfolders and package imports and stuff like that. But we are going to see that in the next screencast, just to keep it clean and simple for you to follow. Also remember, all of this is not like a must. If you are writing any simple to a medium sized project, you can write it without using these single file components. You can just use your regular JavaScript, HTML and CSS and build it. And you could use tactics there to keep it manageable and maintainable. You don't have to always go to app view on single file components if you're not very comfortable using Node.js. But I would really encourage you to learn a little bit of Node.js so you can take the advantage of build process, and you can take the advantage of Vue single file component and other advantages of Vue CLI, which is ability to build a PWAs, adding many other plugins to the CLI so that you get other features like efficient CSS pre-compiling, all of that. But like I said, those are all advanced features. You may not need it in the beginning, but in your free time you can practice these things to become a better front-end developer. Until in the next episode, we'll see how to create a project and build a project and add modules, components, etc. Until then, have a good day. Bye.